doing things like Jesus. I remember hearing the story of a young child, a year or two old, summertime. They decided to go to the pool, community pool, and they're in the community pool, and the little one just won't go in the water. So Dad gets down in the water, and he's standing in the water, and he's standing there, and he's having his arms out, and what's he saying? Jump. Jump. And what's the little one say? When I think of that story, I think of that song, "My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing my God can." The little one has confidence in his dad that his dad might catch him, but he's not sure. So he hesitates, and he hesitates, and he hesitates. And finally, after so much coaxing and coaching the child to jump, the child takes a leap of faith. And the dad puts his hands down. No.
You would.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, yeah?
Not anymore. I did then, but not now.
Yeah.
But no, the dad takes hold of the child. And he brings him down, and he splashes and carries on him. I remember a time when I had my heart operation. It was what was it? It was only a few months after I had my heart operation. I got a new valve put in. And my brother's son and daughter, son-in-law and daughter came over. And Ethan? Is it Ethan or?
Ethan.
Ethan comes over, and he's 3. And so I just grab him, I pick him up, and I go like this, and I catch him, and I put him back down again. Do you know what that child wanted to do for the next half hour? And I just had this operation, and everybody's going, "Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that." I had such a great time with Ethan. We had an amazing time because he had trust. He had faith that I'd catch him. This story about the centurion is pretty interesting. And what I mean by pretty interesting is it comes at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Does everybody know what the Sermon on the Mount is? Nobody puts up their hand. Of course you know what the Sermon on the Mount is. It starts with the Beatitudes, right? What's the first Beatitude? Blessed are? Nobody wants to give it a try? That's one of them. Okay? He started with the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for they will inherit the earth. I don't know about you, but I can see myself in those. Maybe not all of them, but I can see myself. Can you ever? I want you to go home today, and I want you to go to the Beatitudes. I want you to look at them, and I want you to see yourself in one of them, or maybe more than one. And the one you see yourself in, I want you to mark it. You got highlighters at home? Highlight it. If you don't have a highlighter, come and see me. I got 20 of them in the office. You can take them home and keep them. Because I think that when we realize where we depend on God the most is where He wants to give us the most. We're unfortunate we couldn't sing the one song this morning because I've got a mansion just over the hilltop. Do you know where that comes from? That comes from our understanding of realizing that we have only a small house here. And God wants to tell us that He's got something special for us at home. But this interesting thing is, he finishes the Beatitudes, and then he moves on from there, and he goes to going towards Capernaum. And you can also find this in Luke, by the way. They're coordinated passages, and in fact, I went on the internet and this week, and they had a page, and I was going to print it out, but I didn't. They have a page where the two of them run side by side, and where the one has something and the other one doesn't. They make up for it, and it's an amazing story. Because what it begins with, in Luke, he says, I'm going to send my Jewish friends to Jesus. I know about Jesus. I know all about him. I've heard about him. I'm not just an ordinary Roman soldier. I'm a centurion, which means he had 100 men under him. And these Jewish religious leaders came to Jesus as Jesus was coming to Capernaum, and they said, we got a centurion here who's got a paralyzed servant, and we're wondering if you could come and heal him. And I asked myself, was he afraid to go himself? The interesting thing in Luke is, he says that he has supplied all the money to build a synagogue. That's what it says in the Luke passage. This centurion paid for Capernaum's Jewish community to have a synagogue. You see, when I look at that, I'm asking myself, and I'm really trying to see this man standing there, and I'm trying to see that this guy believed in God. What else would he do? Is he trying to get on their good side? I don't think so. I think it goes beyond that. And the interesting part is that before we get to this, Jesus heals the leper. Interesting story. And we jump off of this very quickly because we get into the centurion, and then we get to somebody's mother-in-law, Peter's mother-in-law. These are three healings that Jesus does. The first one, with the leper, he gets there and he heals him so that he can go back into the church. And I think that that's interesting. Because lepers weren't allowed into the community. Not into the synagogue. They weren't allowed to go there. No, you're unclean, you're unclean. And what Jesus did in that case is he took the disease away so that he could go to the priest and get to go back to church. How different than our society, isn't it? Our society is going down farther all the time. I just read recently that the two most celebrated days in the United States calendar for non-religious people are, take a guess. Halloween is number what? Guess what number 2 is?
Super Bowl.
What's that?
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl is the second. And what it is, and this psychologist explained it out in this article, and he said what it is people want to get together. They're missing the getting together and celebrating anything, whether they agree with it or not. They just want a time of celebrating a combined activity. We don't just celebrate a combined activity on Sunday morning. We come here to worship God. And I can see Jesus standing there talking to this leper. And he's saying, you're clean. Go. Go. Okay, I'm a practical person, right? You figured that out already? I'm saying, how could the priest know that he's healed? What do you think, Zach? How could he know? Go ahead. How would he know that the leper is healed? I can't hear you. What? Jesus healed them, but how could you see it visually? This is what I believe. I believe that not only the disease was healed, but the evidence of the disease was healed. If you know anything about leprosy, they lose their feelings. And so they can damage their toes and their fingers and all kinds of other things and bite their lip and half their face goes missing because they can't feel. And I believe that this leper was in one of those stages, and I believe that the power of God transformed him back to the way he was without the leprosy. I can believe that maybe he had a few toes off, and all of a sudden the toes are there again. You see, our God is so strong. There's nothing our God can't do. So then these Jewish guys come to Jesus and say, hey, the centurion would wonder if you would heal his. And so Jesus says, okay, I'm going to come. So off he goes. He starts walking. He's still walking towards, and he gets close to town. And they come and they say, oh, don't worry about it. Just say the word, it'll be fine. He says, no, I'm going to go. You have to put these two passages together to get the whole essence of this whole dynamics. And so he finally comes to himself. He says, don't trouble yourself. He says, I don't want you to trouble yourself. Just say the word. And he says, because I say to people, go, and they go, and I say, come, and they come. He says, I can give orders, and it just happens, and I know you are God. That's the implication of this whole passage. The centurion was saying, I know you're God. Here's how he healed. With a word. I want you to go back to Genesis chapter 1. Okay, you there? In the beginning, God. You got it? In the beginning, God. Here's the one that I love. He said, let there be light. And there was light. And the bright light was day, and the dark was the night. All he had to do was say it. You know, Jesus just has to say it today. Just has to say it. Just has to say it. And it happens. So you said it in your heart and your life. Has it changed you in some way? I remember listening to an old-time preacher one time. He says, if you haven't felt Satan in your life this week, you must be on his side. You ever feel Satan in your life? Just close your eyes for a minute and say, Lord, take care of this. I can't do it. Take care of this. And he does. He does. He honestly does. So here's the centurion. And when I was looking at this, a passage came up. Psalm 72. Now, if you have your Bible, turn to Psalm 72 and get ready to mark it. Because Psalm 72, which I probably read in my life, but I hadn't completely taken it in until I read it this week when I was prompted by another reading I was doing with this study. Psalm 72, 12 to 14. For he will deliver the needy who cry out, the afflicted who have no one to help. He will take pity on the weak and the needy and save the needy from death. He will rescue them from oppression and violence, for precious is their blood in his sight. I can imagine Jesus having the centurion standing there face to face. Remember, we're supposed to be in the middle of this. We're supposed to be looking at the two of them, and the centurion said, Jesus, you don't have to come. You really don't have to come. And I can imagine that maybe Jesus was thinking of these verses and saying, I'm going to do this. Because he already had said that when the Jewish leaders came to him. Centurion needs your help to heal the paralyzed servant. Can you do it? He says, I'm coming. I'm coming. You know, he wants to do that in our families. He wants to do that in our lives. He wants to heal us from the pain we might have suffered. He wants to heal us in situations where we figure there's no way out. I don't know. As I think of this, I think of families that are struggling. I think of the time in which my brother and I never talked to each other hardly at all. We need to heal that. And I used to pray for my brother. He still needs our prayers. Well, we talk a lot now. In fact, he phoned me this week and he said, you know what my wife just told me? I said, no idea, I wasn't there. He goes, you haven't talked to your brother this week. He phoned me. Then he came in. See, he used to call me all the time. He says, can you make me up some business cards? And I said, sure. So I made up business cards. Well, there was a deal at Vistaprint this week that you could get 250 cards for $11.30, including shipping. So I went on the computer and I made up this really, really nice card that's got a picture of the dashboard of his old 54 Ford station wagon. And I put that on there, and I put his information on there, and they said, $10 please. Put in the card, away it came. So Paul, I got something for you. He said, yeah, I know, you got the stuff from Christmas that we didn't take home. I said, no, I bought you something that came in the mail today. He said, I'll be right there. It's 20 minutes from his house to mine. He lives in Binbrook and I live in Stony Creek. He got in the truck right away and he came down. He said, what you got? What you got? So I pulled out these business cards and I said, this is what I got. What do you think? Well, that's pretty cool. Thanks. What? He says, how much do I owe you? It's nothing. Then he got happy about it. You see, Jesus steps into our lives and changes them. We just have to ask him to come. You want to stand in front of Jesus? You want to look into his eyes and say, Lord, I need some help. I really do need some help. I really need some help. Remember, time going to the airport. We're supposed to be there at a certain time, and we got dropped off. My brother drops us off. And away he goes, and we go inside, and there's this lineup of 450 people, and we have 40 minutes to get to the airplane. We're standing there, and this lady walks up, and I'm praying, Lord, we got to get to this plane somehow. We got to get to this plane. And I know this seems trivial, but it's not. This lady with this uniform on came, and she hands me a piece of paper. She says, "Can you hold this, please?" I said, "Sure." She said, "When you get to the front, you can give it to the person at the desk when you go through the, where they do your passport and all that." I said, "Sure, no problem, but we got 40 minutes to get to the plane." She says, "You're not going to make it. You'll be on the next flight, not this one." I said, "Well, really?" I said, "Well, what about the auxiliary line?" See, we knew about that. So she walks over to the window and she looks out the window, because she had to go downstairs outside, across the parking lot, and into another door and through another. And she looks down and she goes, "Yeah, it's going to be opening in about 10 minutes. Follow me." So she took us down. She took us out the door. We already knew the routine. And she said, "Just go over there and wait there." There was about 10 people there. We get there. It's not open yet. 10 minutes pass. 12 minutes are passed. We realize that we're down to 20 minutes. Finally they came and we got through there and we went running up the stairs, because you had to get back up onto the main level. And we went running up the stairs, and we're huffing and puffing because we're both overweight and we're both carrying stuff, and we don't know. And we get to the top of the staircase and there's this message over the PA system. "Well, Mr. and Mrs. Barlow, please get to..." We jumped on one of those cars, took us down, we got on the plane as they closed the door. It may be a trivial thing, but you know what? God takes care of us. He takes care of us in so many different ways. And the amazing thing is this centurion who believed, he said his faith, Jesus says your faith is amazing. People in Israel, the Jewish people, don't have faith like you have. I wish I had faith like that. I wish I had that faith today. I wish I had it every day. I really do. I have faith when I come here. Every morning when I get in the car to come here, I got faith that God's going to get me here, because this is where I need to be. Does God get you in the car and get you to where you need to be? Do you have faith that He's going to take care of it? Do you have faith that He's going to be there every day to do unbelievable things? A couple of weeks ago, somebody asked me what coincidence is. "Oh, that's a coincidence." I said, "No, it's not a coincidence." I said, "That's a coincidence." "No, it's not a coincidence." You know what a coincidence is? Did I tell you what a coincidence is before? Have I told you this? I've told you this before, though, so you already know. A coincidence is when something happens and God doesn't want the credit. There are times like that. There are definitely times like that. Here's what I wrote down. Strong faith in the Lord also comes with gentle humility. From one who depends on the Lord, for that which he cannot do for himself. Those who are self-sufficient seldom have the opportunity to develop faith like this. It's dependence on God. It's total dependence on God. Do we do that? Not all the time. The world doesn't do it at all. They're totally self-sufficient. When I went down to Oakville, when I first was at Oakville, one of the people in the congregation said, "We're having a hard time getting people to come to church." I said, "Really? Have you invited them?" "Yeah. But they got so much money, they don't think they need God." We don't get there. Do it. I think we need to be totally dependent on Him. The other thing is Jesus looked at the inside of the centurion. He looked at his heart, saw where it was. He knows where your heart is. He knows where my heart is. He knows what's first in our life and what's last. He knows how important He is in our life, how dependent we are upon Him, how we need to come to Him more often. Well, I'm in the same boat with you guys. There are days where I'm working away and I don't even think of it. There really are. When things are getting busy and you have so much on your, I was reading this morning in one of these things that ministers, the number one thing that a minister needs to do in ministry, number one thing, you never believe what that guy says, and I go, whoa, yeah, he's right. Make a list. Make a list. Get here at 6 o'clock. What's the first thing I do? Read the newspaper. Make sure the world's okay. 6:50, read the Bible. Make sure I'm okay. 6:30, talk to Him. Make a list. Make sure that your day is not separate from His day. He's in your day. He walks with you, He talks with you, and He tells me, I am His own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. What an amazing opportunity the centurion had. He talked to Jesus face to face, and he says, I believe you. Just say the word. Just say it. Let's pray.